Buonasera. Grazie. Grazie perché ci siete, grazie per questa settimana.
Thank you very much for this week. Thank you very much for your friendship, and thanks for joining us. So we have come to the final conference of this 39th edition of the meeting, and we want to close with a moment testifying the title of this year, and we made a radical choice because this conference represents perfectly the title in a radical way. What does it mean that? What does it mean to have a happy heart? What does it mean that the forces that make a heart happy are the same that move history, that move people and push people to move? So we invited Elena, Mazzola, and Silvio, Cattarina with all their friends of Casa, Volante dell'Imprevisto, who are going to show us what does this year's title mean. So we have already welcomed them, but I think we can do something better.
Sapete che questo è...
You know that we do not take stock of the event now, but we try to sum up very quickly the main highlights of this year's meeting. And you know also that then we say something about next year's meeting. So we had Pope Francis' message that reminded us of the key question who is going to save the heart of man. And then we had the message of President Mattarella about the consciousness that we all enrich each other, and so we make the world a human place, and differences make the world a human place. And then we had Nuncio Pierre, the revolution of the heart. We cannot force anybody to believe, if not but through the testimony of our own life. Then it was the mating of Job. It was Job's mating, certainly, definitely, evidently. So thanks to Job, we were able to think about contradictions and suffering and pain, not of the biblical Job, but of today's Job, what we see every day. And then it was the mating of the sea, of the desire, of the big show, during which we saw to what extent destiny is of individuals and the forces that move history get together in a mysterious plan. And it was the 105th anniversary of the birth of Claudel and its specific show. And then it was a meeting about dialogue between and among different religions. We had our friends from the Alexandria Library, and we are going to spend a mating day there during the second half of October. And so yesterday we also had His Excellency Alissa of the World Arab League. And then we touched upon key social issues, key political issues. And for instance, we had that to fight against the decline of our society, we needed to sort of focus on people, favor dialogue between and among people from different faiths and different political beliefs. So 8 days of meeting that showed to what extent we can give a real contribution to today's society, and it's not about living in a world of dreams, of utopias. It was also a meeting about something new that you tried to test this year. So the meeting of areas, of arenas, of several places where we had plenty of encounters. And this year we had almost 234 meetings and conferences, totally 234 with 528 speakers. So we had exhibition about job, but then we had another 13 exhibitions. We had 18 shows and 32 sports events. And we also had big fundraising activities. We hit a new record. It skyrocketed, and so fundraising has become an important element, and certainly it will have a big impact on next year's meeting. And this meeting was also the meeting of all of us who tried to take up a challenge, because every year is a new challenge. Every year we decide to do it again, to do our best, to work hard, and to decide what to do. And I mean, it was a big challenge. Everybody knows that it's a challenge, because maybe many people could do other things during this week of August, and there are so many voluntary workers who come here for free, and they could do maybe something different. Instead, they come here. And so it was having the meeting. It was the meeting of the people who invested in their wish for happiness. And being here is an opportunity to try to make this wish come true and to work on everybody's self and make it develop and evolve. I think we're all moved by sort of this wish. But what makes us people? How are we human? What is our face made of? So your name came from what you were staring at. This is the title of next year's edition, the 40th edition. So 24th August next year. Save the date. Thank you very much. And now we will listen to our friends. We're going to tell you what does it mean to have a happy heart. Thank you very much, Elena. Thank you, Silvio. And thanks to all of you. Thank you. Right, so from my far right we have Elena, Tanya, then another Elena, and then Ira, the 4 girls of the Casa Volante, literally the flying house. And there's a 5th girl, Elena. And this beautiful experience, this great experience of love and truth from Ukraine is the story you're going to hear about. Let's see what can stem from orphanage, where everything is missing. That whole area of Ukraine is very special, because there is a lot of excitement and there's really a great human richness. Then to my left there are Anita and Martina from L'Imprevisto. However, as you can see, we really want to enhance the beauty of the Casa Volante. Well, it's the first time that I do so much for another entity and to acknowledge the greatness of another entity. So we will try really to stick to the allotted time and speak only 5 minutes each. It's not easy to concentrate such rich stories in just 5 minutes, but, well, we have been told that the publishing house XXXIX was to sort of tell everybody here about a new book, L'Imprevisto, Giovani Venduti e Ritrovati. It is the latest book. It has already sold many copies here during the meeting. There's a beautiful introduction by Professor Eugenio Bosnia, a great psychiatrist and a real master, a real expert in our field. There's also a letter and a special wish by Vasco Rossi just for us. So the more you buy, and please do, the more we're going to be happy and very satisfied. And I hope that under the gaze of Monsignor Piero Conza, the Archbishop of my hometown, we can now get to the main topic.
I mean, a real man. That's what I want to be, who I want to be. I was not born to work in rehabilitation centers or to help the others. That's what I've done for many years, but that was not okay. One has to start off from the need for happiness and for love of my heart. First and foremost, I have to look at my heart. I look at mine and you, and I'm talking to the young people, your heart. We're not here because of drug. We're not here because we don't have hands and arms and legs. We're here for our heart. We're here because we want to know joy, full joy. My heart wants a lot. It wants all. That's what we always tell our guys. I don't want anybody to get to God before I do, and I don't want anybody to love Him before I do, and to love life before I do. We seek every single day, we ask and we seek a big thing. We seek it because we know it's there. We wish to find a continuous and great event, the greatest in the world. Only an infinite and eternal event can respond to the huge gap and to the sigh of my heart. The problems and the needs of the life, what we miss and what we fear and insecurity can be healed encountering people with whom a journey of friendship and closeness and education for life and educating in word and courage and strength can be done. Encountering people, but people that give you more than themselves, much more than themselves. If you who are with me, who are helping me, just give yourself to me, that's too little. You educator, you teacher, you priest are just a poor person like me, but I want it all. I want a lot. I want God. If you stay with me, if you help me, you have to tell me that in this world there's two things, two realities that are the most beautiful, the most important, the most precious. The first reality is my person, my persona. You have to tell me that the persona of each of us is the fact, is the most beautiful presence and fact, and that the second most important presence is reality. Yes, reality, because besides having me, reality has an invitation within life. It has a call, a strength, a secure and great promise. It has a presence, a face. You who help me have to tell me every single day that good is always the biggest thing, is always bigger than any other evil thing. You have to show it to me. You have to tell me that I have always been loved, that I have always been wanted, even when I was alone, abandoned, and when everything around me was crumbling and everything was against me. You have to be able to tell me and explain me that I will always be loved forever. and that love, that God has never abandoned me. He has always been with me. It is not the past. It is not evil what characterizes my life, my persona. The core, the center, the value of life is joy. What we want to consider is joy, is not sorrow, as everybody tries to make us think instead, tormented by joy. And even, above all, sorrow, the cross, death become joy. Being happy is possible, and one should be happy, even when one is full of sorrow, even when everything goes wrong. Life is a shunt, is a load. Tell me this, teach me this. You tell me you want to help me, please teach me this. Don't just look at my sorrow, look at the need I have for life, for happiness, for love that I have, that my inner part is crying out loud. Cry together with me. You see that I'm small, I'm poor, I'm all introverted, and I'm all closed inside myself. So teach me how to cry, to shout. Help me get my joy burst in my chest. Give voice, words, sound, and music to the heart of to the cry of my heart. Give voice to my flesh. Evil is not abandoning, renouncing, giving up, and illness. The real evil is having a soul that doesn't cry, that just wants the good of the world just for itself. Yes, it is true that I am small, I'm poor, I'm miserable, I don't have a family, I'm a refugee just like the real ones, but also the domestic ones. The biggest refugee camp in Italy is made up of its young people. Yes, I do suffer, so put me at the center of your life. You who help me, you educator, put me in front of you so that I can truly call you and call you again to the real sense of life, to the fair attitude of the heart. The small one, the poor one, if we can look at them, if we allow us to look at them, and if we help each other to look at them, can help us see the essential things, the core of things, the extraordinary beauty of the heart and the profoundness of events. The small and the poor continuously tell us and invite us to look at the greatness of being, the meaning of all. The small and the poor are able to communicate effectively and to move us in showing how invisible, ineffable, inexplicable, and unexpected it can be. The small and the poor can look at God, and the way they do it is admirable. We do need the small and the young ones who look at everything with simple and clear eyes, with that special longing in their soul. They make us understand that the logic of life is not just success, fulfillment, material things. They tell us that life is an encounter, a gift, a grace. Life is a testimony of the encounter that we receive, and people are an encounter, we may say. That's what I desire, what I want our young people to become, testimonies of a great thing, courageous and proud young people who give their life for the life of the others. The other is not just an object to be consumed or an object to discharge my violence, but it is a presence full of questions, full of sorrow that won't transfix my heart. Oh, we know far too well and see and feel far too well that the condition to live joy is the cross. I am small, I am poor, and I tell you, educator, teacher, parent, don't you see, don't you understand that what my heart truly desire is to give life for another, offering, giving one's life, sacrifice for the other. Don't you see, don't you understand that the real sense of sorrow and suffering is this? It is for the good of the world, to be offered to the world. So please teach me this, explain it to me, help me. I want my cross, just like the other famous prophetic cross, to make history, to do history, to be history, and to construct history, my history and the history of the world. The fact that I have suffered so much, well, it can't be the case that it is useless for anybody. But where does this cry come from? This is a continuous question. Where does this need for poverty and essentiality come from? Where was joy known to be desired so much? This is St. Augustine's statement. Where was joy known? Where is it that joy was known to be desired so much? In which world, in which mysterious paradise of being have we already encountered joy? To long for it so strongly. Yes, it is a profound conscience, an ancient and continuously new voice, our Father and our Mother, the constant happenings of events and reality, and the kind blow of the wind and the need for justice and love. Where does it come from? It comes from Christ, you Christ, from you Christ, who speak, who call on behalf of, through the mouth of our young people, from you, Christ, who come with the face of our young people, with the beautiful and moving face of our young people.
Elena.
Now, Elena. Hello, everybody. My name is Elena Kutz. I was born and raised in an orphanage where there was no love. That's why in my heart there was no love. And during the last year, I was a student in school. I had a question. Where should I have gone and where would I have gone after the orphanage? But my desire was much more than the possibilities of help that I received to make a decision. And why was that the case? Because in the orphanage, the desires of each individual child were not considered important by anybody. So when children finished their stay in the orphanage, they went to nowhere, because for the people in charge of the orphanage, the only important thing would be that we would be sent somewhere. The educational program in the orphanage was not really clear, and so we were not able to pass the entrance examinations at the university programs. But fortunately, some friends came to see us. Alessandro Filonenko, Ilna, Nani, and Astia came to see us at the orphanage and started to help us. And thanks to them, I was able to study hard and prepare very well for the entrance examinations. And in a month, I was able to catch up with all the program that normally studied in one full school year. Then, during the first 3 months that I spent outside the orphanage, I was studying, but it was really, really difficult, because at that time, a person passed away. And this person was the person who was able to impress the word love in my heart. And this word was impressed so much that I can't get rid of it anymore. The name of this person is Vasily Sidin, and was the director in a theater for young people, Timur Theater. And I knew this person when I was 12 years old. And when I was a kid, I was so unruly in the school. I was always disturbing. I didn't like hugging people, and I didn't like being hugged. And that is why I didn't have any close relationship with anybody. However, Sidin invited me to a summer camp for 3 weeks, and during those 3 weeks he managed to get me change my mind. That is, he taught me that hugs are something beautiful. And how did I understand that? I understood that because every day he did find the time to come and hug me. This thing at the beginning was really bad for me. I didn't like it at all. But when the summer camp finished and I went home, I found myself missing those hugs so much. And what really impressed me about him was his sight. He was looking at me in a sincere way, with a lot of love, a pure sight. He would look at things and find beauty in the details. And then we had a dialogue once. I asked him, "But why are you always so happy?" And he replied, "Well, this is because of him." And I asked him, "But who is this? Who is this person?" And he replied, "It is thanks to God. He gives everything to me, and I am happy." Well, to be honest, I didn't really get what he was talking about, because in his word he was always repeating the term God. But to me, that God was...
Perché mi aveva creata invalida.
He was a tyrant, because I was born disabled and he didn't give me any family. But the sight of city was always in my mind, because I too wanted to be as happy as he was. And during the last year of school, I was almost all the time in hospital, because I had to undergo many surgical operations in my legs, and well, you probably know what it means to have an operation, and all the things that one have to bear with in those circumstances. Clearly, on those occasions, I was entirely focused on the physical pain that I was feeling. I didn't really want to think about anything nice. But then, what Sidin told me came to my mind, and I decided to start looking for beauty and God. And I started realizing that beauty was always next to me. It was me that didn't really want to look at it. I started becoming aware of the actions that people were doing for me and to acknowledge God in those actions. I started smiling more often, and the pain in my legs, little by little, started fading away. Thinking about God was a sort of painkiller for me. And that's how I began to see God more often. Especially, this happened after I met marvelous people, people who love not just God, but that gave their life to Him. And then, just like all the other guys leaving the orphanage, had to face the problem of where I was going to live. Because as a university student, I could go to a university house, but my physical condition didn't allow me to do that. So I was told that a house where Tanya and I could go and live would be created. I didn't believe this. But after a month, Casa Volante was opened. And what happened? What had happened before? There was a dialogue between Sidin and Philonikon. So Sidin said to Philonikon, please save Elena. Give these kids a house where they can live, study, and be happy. And after that exchange, Filonico had to change his life plans. He came to Italy, and there were several conferences, even here at the meeting, where he started to talk about us, and he took a young family, Filippo and Leda, to Ukraine, with whom Tanya and I became very good friends. And they gave their first contribution. They paid for the rent of our flat. And after 1 year in Italy, AFSI's Christmas tents were made, and many people took part in this initiative, so money was collected for our house. And I was so surprised. I was so surprised to see that the desire and the love of so many people who didn't really know us had really the strength to build a real house and to change our destiny. For a number of years, there have been meetings in our community that is called the Comunità Volante, and in these meetings I come across marvelous people. Through these people, I can see the great love and the beauty of God in a different way. It is thanks to these people that I started discovering a new self. So much so that over the last 3 years, I have realized that something strange is going on. My legs cannot walk a long distance. However, in my heart, there is sometimes a great desire for seeing beauty. For example, I want to see the mountains, the ocean, or my friends. At that time, I forget about the physical pain that I have in my legs, and I go straight to the target. And when I'm there, When I'm there, I feel that my pain, my sorrow, is overwhelmed with beauty, is superseded by beauty. So there's nothing else to do but paying tribute to God with a prayer, because He is close to me and because I am the the happiest person in the world. Thank you for your attention and your presence.
Всем привет, меня зовут Таня.
No, Tanya, aspetta.
Tanya, wait. So Elena said so many beautiful things, but in particular, what she said about life that is made of a name and surnames. So beautiful. And then this director that says to Filonenko, save Elena. Wow, this is impressive. It took me some time to get it, but I think that we all had somebody who said, save him or save her. And so she had this very special event. It was like a prophecy, but I think that each one of us was the object of such a statement sooner or later. Tanya. I was born in a disadvantaged family. My parents had 3 children. I have 2 older brothers. My medium brother and me were born disabled. And until 7 years of age, we could not even walk. And my parents could not work because they had to take care of us. And while I was little, I saw very clearly that my parents were suffering a lot. And very often, my dad used to drink alcohol, and my mother used to disappear for periods of time. In spite of that, I know they loved me, and they showed me this love when they took me in their arms or kissed me or hugged me. And when my dad committed suicide, it was such a big pain. That occurred when I was 5 years old. I'm sad because he has never come across good people. He has never met people who could help you liberating from the addiction to alcohol. And then 2 years after that, also my mother died, and so I was sent to an orphanage. Now I understand that the orphanage was a place that gave me a certain stability, and somehow it saved me. In the orphanage, I have been given everything I needed for my survival, so that was a school of life for me. There, I learned to be independent and autonomous. And in my free time, I used to join a theater group. And I liked theater very much. Theater was making my life brighter. I met God through the very same person Elena talked about, Sidin. I also joined the summer camp, and I remember that every day was beautiful, special, and bright, and full of joy. The most important thing we learned there was to be human and humane. We learned to see the needs of other people and try to help them out. In this respect, Sidin was a role model for us. From Sidin, I learned a lot. I learned very clearly that faith is a deed. Before meeting him, I had never ever met a person who could love a child from stranger as if that child was his or hers. For many groups of the theater, Simon was like a father, was a father figure. Thanks to him, I got to know what love is. He showed us that the world is not that cruel. Instead, he showed us that there were people who needed me. I was necessary for them. For Sidin, seeing a child smile was making him smile. And to him, it was very important to help a child, especially if he looked desperate. And after leaving the orphanage, I could stay for 1 month in a student's residence. Then the Casa Volante was opened, and Elena and I were able to live there. And I learned to cook and to use a washing machine. I learned to lay down the table when you have guests coming home. I learned to be welcoming and hospitable. I was not able to do all those things before that because nobody taught me that at the orphanage. Now, 5 girls live in our house. Each one of us is incredible and amazing. Our house is very happy. Our house is very joyful, and many strange and funny things happen to us. And when we tell what happens to us, well, just to guess, laugh out loud. And each one has their own skills. For instance, in the kitchen, I'm very good with soups. Elena is very good with meat. The other Elena is very good at making kasha. Dasha, who is not here, is very good at making crepes and frittelle. And Ira can make milk and chocolate. And on the basis of my experience, I can tell you for sure that everything that happened to us was somehow prepared and made by God, all the encounters we had. And then every Friday, we invite young people from other orphanages. And those boys and girls also need help and support. Our educators are always good at finding the best words to give us courage and to comfort us, and to do the same with all the people coming to see us. And I always ask myself, from where do these people take their courage? And by looking at them and how they live, well, I decided that I also wanted to live my life the same way. So every time I come across problems, every time I feel like being in a dead end with no way out, I think about my dad. And unfortunately, my dad was not helped by anybody. He didn't get any help. And so I thank God for each person who is involved in my life and that helps me. That's why I decided that every day I should try to be happy and grateful to God. I should be grateful to Him for the love He gives me through the people surrounding me. Thank you very much.
È sorprendente.
It is surprising to see to what extent, in spite of the greatest pain ever, there is always some support, there is always some rescuing element. And well, even if there is pain, there is always a sort of way out. And sometimes we do not see that. Elena. Hello, everybody. My name is Elena Zhdanova. I was born in Zaporozhye, but I spent my younghood in an orphanage that is located in the city of Kherson. Unfortunately, I was born in a society that made a special propaganda that was promoting the image of a healthy and strong man. So when disabled children were born in that society, the physicians convinced the parents to reject those disabled children. And unfortunately, I had the same fate. That's how I ended up in an orphanage, because my parents rejected me. My life in the orphanage was not easy at all. It was complex. And we used to sort of have parties and celebrations. We got presents, we made trips, but no love was shown to us. And well, there was always a distance in the relationship we had with our caregivers. Even punishment were made without love. So no results were achieved through such an attitude. Educators were distant from children and the other way around. I lived there until I was 17. My life was empty and boring. My life was meaningless, useless, because I felt being somehow offended. And I asked myself, why is it so that I was born like that? Why is it so that my parents rejected me? I was attending the orphanage school, and during the last year, some people started coming to us as visitors. They were Christians, and I met these people. I had the chance to get to know them, and we became friends. Then, later on, they started inviting me to their house. And I started then to go to them and visit their house regularly. Well, our relationships have become stricter and stricter. Some trust has developed between us until they decided to welcome me in their family. And then I encountered Christ in that family. I knew little about God by the time. Well, I went to the church, but very often I had doubts. I asked myself, well, does God really exist? Considering that I had so many questions, I used to pray quite a lot, but I never had any answers. At one point, I remember I got very angry and I decided to live without God. All the believers who used to come to the orphanage used to tell us, children, God loves you. But, well, that made no difference to us because we had no example of this love. Instead, I was shown in that family examples of love of God. After that, faith and hope somehow appeared in me. So God showed me that I can be needed for somebody, and I can be interesting for somebody. From that point on, my life has completely changed. After the orphanage, I was able to continue my training and become a social worker. And so after becoming a social worker, I wanted to continue my studies and get a degree, always within this field. But I was scared. I was afraid of living by myself. I had no house, I had no job, and I had no money. Fortunately, God sent me Tanya. Tanya introduced to me Emmaus. And Emmaus is an entity, and I met very good friends there. And so I was helped to sort of enter university, and I was able then to continue my study. So that's why today I'm able to attend the Humanistic and Educational Academy, and in particular a specialization course for social educators. And I'm learning to live autonomously. After graduating, my dream is to open up my own NGO, because I would really like to help young people like me. I'm very grateful to all the people who are helping us and that join this project and that commit and that are involved in my life. So thanks to your support, you're making my life better. Thank you.
Rendete la mia vita.
You're making my life better, so useful for the world. It's beautiful. She said it so well when she said, I realized that I'm important for the people who are helping me. I'm giving something to them. I'm not the one who gets something. So this is very interesting part. And now it's time to listen to Hira. Hello, everybody. My name is Ira. The third day after I was born, my mother rejected me. And the reason is that I'm disabled. But please do not judge my mother, because we all make mistakes when we're young because of the lack of experience or sometimes just because of fear. I forgave my mother simply because she's a person and she's not worse than any other person who is sitting here today. I spent my childhood in a little town, Tsurupinsk, in the Ukrainian region of Kherson, so not far from the seaside. And I was in an orphanage for disabled orphans. I've lived there for 14 years. And you can well understand how it is like to live in an orphanage. Life there is not that easy. However, the difficulties of those years made me a better person. There, I was given an education, and I was never afraid to try to make progress. And then I learned a lot of things there that were useful for my later life. I always tried to learn as much as I could during my life at the orphanage. Everything adults used to give me. But why was I doing that? Because I then was afraid that all alone by myself in such a big world, I would not have been able to survive. Our educators used to tell us continuously, the world is cruel and you are useless. Nobody needs you. And that thought, well, was somehow graved in my head since I was 4 years old. And then I left the orphanage. And then I decided not to trust anybody, never ever in my life, because I was afraid. I was afraid to be cheated. And then, while I was at college, I met Alexander Filonenko, and those people seemed wonderful to me. That's why my relation to them was different from the relation I had with other people. It was warmer. We spent time together. It was very joyful. We used to talk about different things. I remember we started to meet quite often, and so we became friends. Then I finished college, and at the time I felt a bit lost. I didn't really know what to do after that. And clearly, first of all, I decided to share my sorrows and concerns with my new friends. And I would have never ever imagined to find people who were willing to accompany me, to support me, and to help me with my plans. Instead, these people helped me, and she helped me understand which were the specific examinations for the university for the school I wanted to attend. They helped me find teachers so that I could get prepared and enter the university I wanted to attend. When I knew that, well, I had been admitted, I thought, oh my gosh, where am I going to go and live? Because to me too, well, physically, it would have been very hard to live in a student's residence. And on that occasion too, my friends helped me. And so now I can live at the Casa Volante, as you all know. Well, there's always somebody waiting for me at Casa Volante. And there I could start feeling my life differently. I start feeling more positive and more grateful. I'm very happy that my life now is as it is. Since I've been living there, I was able to meet new people. I met the people from the movement, and today these people are my friends. I could not understand why those people are the people that I really wanted to see and to meet and to hug. I could not understand that. And why was it so that those people loved me so much? I really wanted to trust them. But who were they? Why had I met them? What for? Well, I had so many questions for them, and I just had questions and no answers. Actually, I still have some open questions in my mind, but, well, the difference now is that I've started understanding the core essence of this friendship. There was a time recently during which I've ended up in a bit of a crisis because of all these questions. And I really did not know how to go on and keep going. I just wanted to be by myself, not to think about anything, just to rebalance myself and understand what I wanted and what I felt. So on the eve of my birthday, I left the house and went to Kherson, where there is my favorite place ever. It's a place that soothes me and sort of makes me recover. And there I met a woman who used to come to the orphanage to visit us children. And I remember that that woman used to talk about God with us. She used to let us read the Bible. And I also remember very well that when I was younger, I had prayed with her to ask for a mom to God. So I asked mom for a woman, for a mom, and she used to tell us, God can anything. He can do anything. So I remember I used to pray God to get a mother, and when I was 10, my mother came to visit me. And when I went to Kherson and met this woman again, she told me, your gaze has changed. Your eyes look different. I could not understand what she meant. But then that's the words she used. Ira, when you turned 12 and your mother died, You wore a mask because of your pain and mourning. I remember your pain and suffering. I remember that you used to lock yourself in your room. You did not want to listen to the Bible any longer because God has taken your mom away from you, that mother that you have waited for such a long time. And then I remember that that mask remained on your face since then. Instead, I would have liked you to start living a true life. I wanted for you not to control emotions on your face. Nobody, would beat you if you were to cry or laugh out loud. I remember I wanted to see the old era again, the true era, the era likely and able to smile. I didn't want you to be afraid of showing how you are for real. And that's why I prayed God. I asked God to give you people who could help you take off that mask. And I prayed God so that He could give you real friends. I prayed God in order for you to have these true friends always on your side. And after meeting that woman, I started understanding what she was talking about. I started understanding which were the friends Natasha had asked God for me. And I'm grateful to those friends who are still there beside me. Thank you. Thank you because you took me as I am, in spite of all my defects. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here and share my story with you. I'm grateful for the house I live in. I'm grateful for the people that are beside me now. I could not imagine my life now without you, my beloved friends. Even though we live far from each other, every time I meet you, it's beautiful, and every time it gets more and more beautiful. I'm grateful to you because you allow me to discover myself from the inside. I'm grateful to you because you're always ready to help me. I'm grateful to you because you show me beauty. I thank you because you are patient with me and your heart is always open. It has always been very important for me to find somebody needing me and that could make me feel loved. You made the wish of my heart come true, a wish that I had for a long, long time. Thank you very much.
Una frase che ha detto.
Our friend said that thanks to them now I live in the Casa Volante, a house where I'm always waiting. There's somebody waiting for me. So there is this sense of waiting for great things. It's not just a matter of care, of affection, but really there is this sense of wait for big things. Big things has the omnipotent done for me. Now the floor goes to Anita. I've been in this rehabilitation center for 1.5 years because of addiction problems. I started when I was 13 years old with a light drug to move then to heavy drug. But drugs were just a consequence of what I had experienced when I was little. When I was 5 years old, my parents divorced. I went to live with my mother, and my mother was an alcoholic, and so she didn't really take care of me. I suffered a lot because of this. I didn't feel accepted and wanted, neither by her nor by my peers that were bullying me because of my physical aspect. So I started to hang around with older people, and not really good companies. And that's because of all the hatred I was feeling because of my history. Then on the 18th of April 2016, my grandmother passed away, and everything crumbled under my feet. All the world around me was really terrible. All the substances were not enough. So I talked to my mom, and she told me that my grandmother told her before dying to take care of me because there was something wrong with me. And so I started to cry, and I tell her everything about my problem with drug, and I told her I needed help. I went to the drug addiction center, and an interview was organized. The 20th of September 2016, I entered the community, and I remember the very first people I talked to, and initially I perceived a great joy of being together with other people. At the beginning, I didn't understand how so many girls that didn't really decide to live together had such a big joy in life. But then I understood that it's our everyday fight that keep us together. I learned to live with essential things without the need to have mobile phones or makeup. And I learned that it is relations that can help us grow, that being in relation with others is fundamental. And also the educators there can help us understand that we need a relation with adults, because in the past we used to do everything on our own, but that's how we really got the wrong way. After years now, I have rebirthed and I recovered the relations with my parents, and I have hope for my future. Before, the only hope I had was that my end could end as soon as possible. Now I can say I feel alive. I don't need to suppress my emotions with drugs and without disguising my past, because I am myself for what I have been. Well, life has been full of sorrow, but it's still beautiful. I feel I'm worth it, that I can give a lot as I'm doing now. I would have never imagined that I could be here to talk to you all. I am this experience, and this experience made me all of a sudden. The unexpected, the unforeseen. You have seen that in his case too, it was the grandma who warned the mother. There's always a big help, there's always a big presence. Light is always present. Now, Martina. My name is Martina, and I am involved in Imprevisto for 2 years. My experience is about desire I've always had in my heart, and despite its strength, I sometimes devoured it because I gave it the wrong name, the wrong shape. I started to take drugs when I was 14 years old because I felt lonely and abandoned, above all because of life, and because I didn't really find a real reason to commit in something and to live with all the things around me. from different family problems. I went to live in a community when I was 3 years old, and I stayed there until I was 14 years old when I went to live with my dad. To me, betrayal was too big. One further case in which I was abandoned, one further sorrow, so I rebelled and I made a rebellion. I decided coldly that no adult would have ever had a role in my life. So I grew up in a self-referential way, and when you grow up like this, you need strategies to keep up with your inadequate situation. I had substances, drugs, and I was presumptuous. I was desperate when I was 19 years old. One night I was crying very hard and I thought I need to feel at home. That's how I chose to be in a community. That's the only place where I felt like being in a community. But in the imprevisto, it was different. I thought that home was a place for consolation, for affections, but here I understood that home is where heart can rest, where the fatigue that you have is not taken away, but it is looked at and dealt with together. So you can understand how small you are, though you are big. In this community, all the masks I had were taken away. All the apparently untouchable appearance was cancelled. I flew many times, and it was not easy to accept the most profound truth of myself, and above all, it was not easy to accept that I could truly know myself through the eyes of someone else. Grazia, the manager, always gives an example that is really emblematic. In this moment, I'm talking, but you are looking at me and you give me a face. I thought that people should have always behave and do things with their own strength. That was the idea of being free and strong. But today I am experiencing for the first time what freedom really is. That is deciding to live beyond the limits of my faults and my defects, knowing that these can be a springboard that can lead me to further achievements. My limitations are the assumption that is needed to look for great things. I have discovered that we are all on the same boat. We young people, elderly people, have the same duty to be happy. It may sound trivial, but it is essential, because if we all know that we long for a point of light, then we can help each other to look for it. I found that everything is a constant quest, because everything is movement and life. Today I can say that joy is exactly what I have been flying away, running away from. That is a relationship. I feel empowered by Grazia. I feel empowered by Silvio and called by Giancarlo, or maybe there's colleagues and friends calling me. I see my dad being moved when we are together. You've almost done it. I'm finished. I'm finished. Don't worry. These are the strengths that have moved my story and automatically my heart, because I have found that everything for me, my life, these people, all these things are meaningful, and it is really doing so good to me. Oh shit, that's the last sentence I can't finish. I like using the word discovery because it means that this truth has always been there. It just needed to take off the veil that was covering it.
Bravo. Tant'è che una delle cose.
One of the things that we always tell the kids, well, in Martina's presentation, it was really clear. Don't look at us, look at where we look, the point where we look. We have thunders from heaven. Now, Elena Mazzola. Good evening. I am Elena, and I've been living in Ukraine, Kharkov, for 1 year, more or less. After spending 15 years in Moscow, Russia, I work as an interpreter and I translate literature, and I manage a cultural center that is strictly linked to the Emmaus Association, with the Casa Volante being one of its projects. One thing I want to mention this evening is something that also Silvio mentioned. That is, the point is, I don't work for kids that have problems, because I wasn't born for that. What I deal with in what I do is to look for what makes my heart happy, what makes me happy. That's what is in place between me and the girls of La Casa Volante, and that's what led me to know Silvio and the kids in Previsto and to become friends, and that's why we drag them to Ukraine, and we will keep trying and drag them to Ukraine, because we want to learn to be happy like them. We want to discover their secret, and we want to go beyond that. We want to be the ones that respond to the question of Saint Benedict that Pope Francis recalled in his message to the meeting. Who is the man that wants life and desire happy days? We want with our kids to be able to cry we, I. It doesn't matter whether they are rich and poor or healthy or ill. Here the matter is about the nature of being a human person. I want to live and be happy. That's what the Pope said. That's the subject of our life, the heart, the desire, the fulfillment, and the possible happiness. An unexpected thing that takes place and turns life into something human. Our kids, those in the Imprevisto, and our girls, as you could sense today, have really, really strong stories. When they give us the details, these stories are inhumane, are terrible. Diana mentioned this with a disarming simplicity when she described her encounter with Sidin. She said, "To me, God was a tyrant, was a dictator. He created me as an invalid. He didn't give me a family." But then she said, "But the gaze of Sidin was impressed in my mind, and I wanted to be as happy as he was." Encountering a happy man and hugging you as you are and impressing in your heart the word love, helping you finding the courage to take off the mask of sorrow that you put on, that's what I want to do. We have encountered happy people, and we are about to become like them. And as Tanya said, we decided that we want to be happy because we are tormented by the joy that happened to us in these meetings, encounters, and now that's with us. In these profoundly humane encounters, our longing for freedom becomes a power for good, a power that can build the world. Today this was also mentioned by our girls. And it really impressed me that the desire and the love of people that didn't know us was strong enough to build a real house and to change our destiny. That's what Elena mentioned. That's a reality. People who have become happy and now can move history. These girls suffered so much, so much. So they taken advantage with respect to us. Their heart is revealed even too much, is too awake. What is linked to the heart must be real, it must be embodied. The love that they long for must be embodied, must be, it has to be possible to meet that love, to find that love in a person. If these are just words, it doesn't really affect us. That's what Elena said when the people that went to see the kids to the orphanage would say, God loves you. Well, they didn't have an example, but then in the family that accepted her, there she had an example of encounter. From that real encounter, hope and faith started in me. And she was reborn, that's what she said, and I have hope. But before, I only hoped my life could end as soon as possible. That's the despair that many people feel, a sense of emptiness that also many young people feel, loneliness. In her story, Tanya said that in the orphanage she was taught to be independent, whereas Sidin used to teach the kids to be humane. That's a critical point. I want to emphasize it. In a certain sense, in our job of educators, we try and help the girls in the Casa Volante to be independent, self-sufficient, and to learn how to live as an adult and as a responsible person. But in fact, the educators there, the people working in the various centers, are well aware that being adults does not mean being independent. That is why we try to do this job that is about life. We try to educate. We are in a community and we try to learn the mystery that we are all together, that each and every person is. We educate ourselves to discover and to know this mystery of ours. And we take off our sandals before the sacred and immense mystery that each and every one of you are, just like us. What does that mean? It means that together we learn not to be independent, but dependent. We learn that our nature is based on need and on being in relation with someone. And this is something that Martina mentioned very well, when she said that this being in a relation corresponds to happiness. Today I can say that happiness for me is the thing that I have always run away, that is a relationship. Or as Anita mentioned, she said, yes, I am made of this event. The girls in the Imprevisto have taken many steps forward compared to us, but we will try to get there ourselves. We will try to be people that are more and more alive, will not stop dreaming in a better world, and will keep tormenting others with the testimony of the joy for the events that happened to us. And we are reasonable dreamers because of this event and its strength. I would ask you to try and put each word next to the other. The words of the letter by the Pope to the meeting and those that were spoken by these girls this evening. Pope Francis, in his message to the meeting, said that it is reasonable to dream about a better world, and this dream is based on certainty, that is in the belief that Christ is the beginning of a new world. His resurrection is not something of the past. It contains a powerful life which affected the world, where there seems to be death everywhere. Resurrection instead comes. And Elena said that now my sorrow is overwhelmed with beauty. So I have to do nothing but pay tribute to God because He is close to me, and I am the happiest person in the world. And Anita said, life was full of sorrow, but it is still beautiful. I feel I am worth it, that I can be myself, and I have a lot to give. And Irina said, to me, it was very important to have someone for whom I was not useless, and I needed someone who loved me. You have fulfilled what my heart has been longing for so long. And Pope Francis wrote, it is an incomparable strength, the power of resurrection now, not in the past. In darkness, something new starts flourishing. As you can see, we are just a small seed that has started to flourish, but this seed was born where apparently everything was dead. Instead, we were taken by that power of life that still permeates the world today, and certainly we are a seed full of joy. Thank you.
È un piccolo seme.
A little, very little seed, but as you can understand, it will last very long in time. Thank you, everybody.